It was a cold and silent night, the kind of night when the world seems to hold its breath. The small town slept quietly, and only the wind whispered through the trees. But far away in the forest, something unusual broke the silence. A loud sound came from the sky, like thunder mixed with fire. A flash of light crossed the dark clouds, and then a crash shook the ground. A man named Daniel lived near that forest. He was a simple man, working at a small repair shop in town. His life was ordinary, almost too ordinary. But when he heard the crash, his heart jumped. Curiosity pulled him outside. He grabbed a flashlight and walked into the trees. The forest was thick. Shadows moved with the wind, but the smell of smoke guided him. He reached a small clearing. His eyes widened. Something had fallen from the sky. Not a plane, not a car, but a small burning object, metal twisted and glowing red, steam rising like breath from a wounded beast. Daniel froze. Fear ran through him, but then he heard it, a soft cry. Not from fire, not from metal, but from something alive. He stepped closer, his light shaking in his hand, and there she was, a child, no older than 6 or 7, small and trembling, her skin faintly glowing under the smoke. Her eyes bright like silver moons. She was not human, Daniel knew at once, yet she looked so fragile, so afraid. The girl stared at him, tears running down her strange face. She spoke no words, only a soft sound of fear. Daniel's heart softened. She was lost, scared, and alone. He knelt down slowly, speaking in a calm voice. "It's all right, little one. I won't hurt you." Though he knew she could not understand, his voice carried kindness, and she seemed to feel it. Daniel looked around. There was no one else. No search teams, no sirens, only silence. Whoever she was, she had come from the stars, and now she was helpless in his hands. He wrapped his coat around her. She trembled but did not resist. Her tiny hands clung to his sleeve as if begging him not to leave her there. Carrying her home was not easy. The forest was dark, and the object behind him hissed with strange energy. Part of him wanted to call the police, maybe the army, but something inside told him no. If the world found her, she would become an experiment, a secret locked away in a lab. He could not let that happen. She was just a child. At home, Daniel placed her on his couch. She looked around with wide eyes, touching things with curiosity. The blanket, the lamp, the photo of his late wife on the wall. Daniel gave her warm milk. She sipped carefully, as if tasting earth for the first time. Then slowly, her eyes closed, and she slept. That night, Daniel could not sleep. He sat by the window, thinking. His heart was full of questions. Where did she come from? Why was she here? And most of all, was someone looking for her? Outside, the wind howled. But Daniel felt something else too, a strange weight in the air, as if unseen eyes were already searching. Days passed. Daniel tried to care for the girl. He gave her food, clothes, even toys he had saved from his own childhood. She learned quickly. Though she did not speak his language, she pointed, she smiled, she laughed, slowly. The house that had been so quiet since his wife's passing was filled with life again, yet mystery surrounded her. Sometimes at night, she would stand by the window, gazing at the stars, whispering sounds in a strange tongue, her eyes glowing softly. Daniel would watch from the doorway, wondering if she was calling out to someone far away. One evening, while repairing an old radio, Daniel noticed something strange. The radio picked up signals, not normal ones, but high-pitched bursts of sound, repeating again and again. It felt less like static, more like a search. He oaked at the girl, and she looked back, her eyes filled with both hope and fear. Daniel realized then she was not forgotten. Someone was searching for her, but who and why? He told himself one thing, no matter what happened, he would protect her. She was his responsibility now, and though she was not from Earth, she was still just a child, a lost child who needed love. The forest remained quiet, but Daniel often felt a chill when he passed by. Sometimes he thought he saw movement, a shadow slipping between trees. Sometimes he felt watched, but when he turned, there was nothing. Still, the feeling never left him. The girl stayed close to him, always holding his hand when they went outside. She laughed at small things, like chasing butterflies or tasting chocolate for the first time. Her joy reminded Daniel of the daughter he never had, and deep inside, he began to think of her as his own. But deep down, he knew the truth. The stars were not silent, her past was not erased, and one day, someone would come, maybe to take her back, maybe for something darker. For now, though, in that small, quiet house, she was safe. Daniel promised himself that much. But outside, in the vast sky above, unseen watchers moved, and their search had only just begun. The years rolled forward like quiet waves. The small alien girl who once trembled in the smoke of the forest now laughed in Daniel's living room. She was no longer a stranger in his house, she was family. Daniel named her Lyra, A simple name that felt right. It was easy to say, and somehow it matched the soft sound she made the first time he tried to ask her name. She accepted it with a smile, and from that day on, she was Lyra. Raising her was not easy. Every day was a challenge. She grew faster than human children. Her mind was sharp, her eyes full of endless curiosity. She asked questions with gestures and sounds, and Daniel answered with patience, slowly building their own silent language. But Lyra was not like other children. Sometimes her hands glowed faintly when she was upset. Sometimes objects moved without touch. Daniel once walked into the kitchen to find every spoon floating in the air, circling her head like silver birds. She laughed, but Daniel's heart pounded. He whispered to her gently, teaching her to control it, reminding her that people outside must never see. In school, she was different too. Daniel could not enroll her in a normal classroom. No papers, no records, no birth certificate. So he taught her himself. He bought books. He showed her letters, numbers, and history. She learned quickly, faster than he expected, sometimes even faster than he could teach. The bond between them grew. Daniel loved her laughter, her endless wonder, the way she called him with small gestures when she wanted to share something. She loved him back, clinging to his arm when they went into town, smiling when he brought her small gifts. But around them, the world was not blind. Neighbors began to notice strange things, how Lyra never seemed to get sick, how her eyes glimmered like silver under the moon. Whispers followed. Though no one dared to ask directly, Daniel avoided questions with nervous smiles, protecting their secret with careful silence. At night, however, the secret whispered back. Lyra would sometimes dream, calling out in a voice that was not human, words sharp and musical. Daniel would rush to her room, holding her hand until she calmed. She never explained, but he could feel the weight of another world pressing on her heart. One evening, Daniel fixed his old radio again, and the strange signals returned. Not once, not twice, but every night. High bursts of sound, strange patterns, almost like a coded language. Lyra sat beside him, eyes wide, as if the signals were calling her. She placed her glowing fingers on the radio, and for a moment, the sound shifted, almost forming a voice. Daniel pulled her hand back gently, fear and love mixed. In his chest, he told her softly, "Not yet, not yet." But he knew somewhere far away, someone was reaching across the stars. And he began to wonder, was it wrong to keep her hidden? Was it selfish to hold her when she might belong somewhere else? But then she would laugh, running across the yard, calling him with gestures only they understood, and he knew, no matter where she came from, she was his daughter. Still, the world outside was not safe. Rumors in town grew. Some people said Daniel had taken in a strange orphan. Others claimed they saw lights in his house at night. One man swore he heard a voice not human when passing by. Daniel tightened the circle of their lives, keeping Lyra close. One afternoon, while fixing a broken tractor for a neighbor, Daniel noticed men in dark suits driving slowly past his road, their faces hidden behind glasses, their car unmarked. He felt the hairs on his neck rise. When he returned home, Lyra was at the window, her silver eyes watching the same car fade into the distance. Daniel realized their time was running short. Someone was searching not just through the airwaves, but here, on Earth. That night, as he tucked Lyra into bed, she clutched his hand, whispering a word he almost understood. It sounded like home, but her eyes were not looking at him. They were staring at the stars through the glass. Daniel kissed her forehead gently, promising himself the same vow he had made years ago. No matter who came, no matter what they wanted, he would protect her, even if it meant standing against the sky itself, and far above, unseen by human eyes, signals crossed between ships in the dark. The search for the lost child was growing stronger, and Earth was no longer silent. Lyra grew older, and with every year her questions grew deeper. She was no longer the small child Daniel had carried out of the forest. She was now a young girl standing on the edge of her teenage years, tall for her age, her silver eyes brighter, her voice soft but carrying a strange echo. She often stood outside at night, her gaze fixed on the stars. Daniel watched her silently, knowing what she wanted to ask, and one evening, she finally did. She touched her chest, then pointed to the sky, then looked at him, her eyes asking the question her lips could not. Daniel swallowed, his heart heavy. He sat beside her, his voice low. "You came from there, Lyra, from beyond the stars. I don't know who your people are. I don't know why you were sent here, but you were a gift to me, and I raised you as my daughter." She listened, tears shining in her eyes, and then she hugged him, as if she feared losing him. But the dreams began soon after. Lyra would wake in the night, calling out in a language Daniel did not understand, a voice full of pain and longing. Sometimes she whispered a single word over and over, a word that sounded like mother. Daniel held her hand, calming her, but deep inside he knew her past was calling. Strange things started happening around the house. The radio signals grew louder, more frequent. Sometimes Daniel thought he could hear voices hidden inside the bursts, as if someone was trying to speak across a great distance. Lyra would sit by the radio, her eyes wide, her fingers trembling. She seemed to understand pieces of it, but when Daniel asked, she stayed silent, as if afraid to tell him. One afternoon, Daniel found her drawing on a piece of paper. The shapes were not human letters. They were sharp lines, glowing circles, and strange symbols that pulsed faintly even after the pencil left the page. She said nothing, only pushed the paper away when he asked. The neighbors began to talk more. They said Lyra was strange, too strange. One boy swore he saw her eyes glow when she was angry. Another claimed she healed a bird with only her touch. Daniel tried to laugh it off, but whispers spread quickly in a small town. Daniel feared someone would come, not just from the stars, but from the government, from the shadows that already watched his house. And one night, his fear grew stronger. He stepped outside and saw lights in the sky, not shooting stars, not planes, but silent shapes moving in patterns, as if searching. Lyra saw them too. She whispered something in her strange tongue, her voice trembling, and Daniel knew these were not simple lights. They were searching for her. The next day, Lyra sat by the window, staring at the forest. She spoke a single word softly, again and again. Daniel could not understand, but her tone was sad, longing. He felt helpless. He wanted to protect her, but he could not erase her past. Then came the storm, a night of thunder and rain. But beneath the storm, another sound echoed, deep and metallic, like engines hidden behind the clouds. Daniel stepped outside, his flashlight trembling, and for a moment, he saw a shadow of something massive above, something that disappeared into the storm with unnatural speed. When he returned inside, Lyra was awake, standing in the middle of the room, her silver eyes glowing brighter than ever. She whispered, "They are close," her voice broken but clear. Daniel froze. This was the first time she spoke his language fully. He realized then she had been learning quietly, slowly, listening to his words, building her voice. But she had kept silent until the fear became too much. Daniel held her shoulders. "Who is close, Lyra? Who is coming?" But she shook her head, her eyes full of tears. "Mother," she whispered again, and Daniel's heart sank. For years, he had raised her as his own, but the word mother carried a weight he could not fight. Somewhere out there, someone was calling her back. Yet another question haunted him. If her mother was alive, why had she left her child here? And why now, after all these years? Was she searching? The days after the storm were heavy with silence. Daniel kept working, fixing machines, teaching Lyra, but his mind was restless, and Lyra's silence was worse. She no longer laughed as before. She spent more time gazing at the stars, whispering softly to herself. One evening, Daniel found her holding the strange drawing again, tracing the glowing lines with her fingers. "What is this, Lyra?" he asked gently. She looked at him, her lips trembling. "Home," she whispered, and then folded the paper quickly, hiding it. That night, Daniel dreamed of a house filled with light, a woman's voice calling from far away, and Lyra's silver eyes fading into the stars. He woke with his heart racing, the sound of the radio buzzing in the dark, louder than ever before. He walked to the living room and the signal grew clear, not just noise, but a rhythm, a code. He felt it in his bones. Someone was sending a message, searching, calling, and it was for her. Daniel turned to Lyra, who stood silently in the doorway, her face pale but calm. She looked at him with eyes that carried both love and sorrow, and she said softly, "They will find us." Daniel's chest tightened. He wanted to fight it, to protect her forever, but he knew the truth. The signs of her past were no longer whispers. They were becoming reality, and somewhere out there, across the stars, someone was already on their way. The night was quiet, almost too quiet. The forest that usually hummed with crickets and owls seemed to hold its breath. Daniel sat by the window, his mind restless. The signals on the radio had stopped, but the silence was worse. Silence meant something had changed. Lyra was upstairs, pretending to sleep, but Daniel knew her eyes were open, staring at the ceiling, waiting, fearing, hoping. She had grown quiet in recent days, her laughter gone, her silver eyes always searching to the sky. Then it happened, a sound so simple yet so heavy, a knock on the door, soft at first, then louder. 3 slow knocks that seemed to echo through the whole house. Daniel froze, his hand gripping the armrest of the chair, his heart beating like a drum. He stood, every step heavy. The air itself seemed to grow thicker. He reached the door and paused, his hand trembling on the handle. In that moment, he wanted to pretend he had not heard, to stay in silence. But the knocks came again, steady, patient. With a deep breath, Daniel opened the door, and there she stood, a tall figure, a woman but not human. Her skin shimmered faintly under the porch light, her eyes glowing like polished silver, the same as Lyra's, her hair dark and flowing, her presence powerful yet calm. She looked not like a stranger, but like a shadow of Lyra's future. Daniel's breath caught. His instincts told him to protect his daughter, to shield her, but his body refused to move. The woman tilted her head, her voice soft yet heavy with meaning. "I am her mother." Daniel felt the words like a blade. He wanted to deny it, to push her away, but even before Lyra came running down the stairs, he knew it was true. Lyra stopped at the doorway, her eyes wide, her lips trembling. For the first time in years, she spoke a single word with clarity. "Mother." The voice cracked, filled with longing. The woman stepped forward, but Daniel blocked her path, his voice sharp. "You left her. You abandoned her here. Why now, after all these years?" His chest burned with anger, his heart torn in two. The woman's glowing eyes softened. "I did not abandon her. I hid her. Earth was the only place safe, but they have found me now, and they will soon find you." Her words carried fear, but also truth. Daniel could see it in her face, the exhaustion, the sorrow, the love that still shone when she looked at Lyra. Daniel's mind raced. He wanted to shout, to demand answers, but Lyra moved, her small hands clinging to both of them, tears streaming down her cheeks. She was caught between two worlds. The woman lowered her gaze, her voice quiet. "I do not wish to take her away. Not now, not yet. I ask only one thing. Let me stay. Let me live with you. We are stronger together." Daniel was stunned. He expected her to demand her child back, to pull Lyra into the stars, but instead she asked for a home, a place in the very house where Daniel had raised Lyra alone. Suspicion burned in his chest. "Why here? Why with me? If you are so powerful, why not take her back to your people?" The woman shook her head slowly. "There are no people left. Only enemies. Only hunters. My world is gone. This is the only home left for her, for us." The words fell heavy. Lyra looked between them, her hands shaking. She whispered again, "Home." The same word she had drawn on paper, the same word she had whispered in her sleep, and Daniel's anger softened. He stepped aside slowly, though his heart screamed in protest. The woman entered the house, her presence filling the room with strange warmth and tension. The next days were uneasy. The woman, who called herself Soraya, stayed quietly, watching, learning. She moved gracefully, every gesture precise. Yet at night, Daniel saw her outside, sending signals into the sky with glowing symbols in the air. He pretended not to notice, but the truth aided him. Lyra was torn. She loved Daniel, but she could not resist the pull of her mother. She sat with Soraya, listening to stories in a language Daniel could not understand, sometimes laughing, sometimes crying. Daniel felt like a shadow in his own home, but something else grew inside him, a sense of dread. Soraya's eyes often scanned the horizon, her body tense as if waiting for an attack. She was hiding something, and Daniel knew it. One evening Daniel confronted her, his voice low. "What are you not telling me?" Soraya looked at him, her silver eyes glowing softly. "They are coming, the hunters. They follow the signals. They know she is here. I stayed to protect her, but they will not stop until she is gone." Daniel clenched his fists. "And what about me? What about this house, this life we built?" She answered quietly. "That is why I came, because she will need both of us." The words struck deep, not just a warning, but a truth he could not ignore. Lyra was no longer just his, she was theirs, and the danger was not far away. It was already moving closer. That night, as Daniel lay awake, he realized the knock on the door had changed everything. Their quiet life was over. The past had finally found them, and the future would not let them rest. And outside, deep in the forest, lights flickered between the trees, silent watchers waiting for the moment to strike. The house that once echoed with simple laughter now carried a new weight. Soraya's presence changed everything. Daniel felt it in the walls, in the air, even in the silence between footsteps. She was graceful, calm, almost too calm, and yet every movement carried the shadow of secrets. Lyra was caught in the middle, her silver eyes glowing brighter when she sat with her mother. Soraya told her stories in a language Daniel could not follow, soft words like music. Lyra listened with wonder, sometimes crying, sometimes smiling. Daniel watched from a distance, feeling both proud and replaced. At first, Soraya tried to live like a human. She helped in the kitchen, though she had never cooked before. She cleaned with precision, her hands glowing faintly as she repaired broken objects without tools. But when neighbors came, Daniel warned her to stay out of sight. The neighbors were curious. They whispered already about Lyra, adding a strange woman into the mix would only make things worse. Daniel made excuses, saying a distant cousin had come to stay, but deep down he knew people did not believe him. At night, when the town slept, Soraya slipped into the forest. Daniel followed once, quietly stepping through the dark. What he saw made his blood run cold. Soraya stood in a clearing, her hands raised, glowing symbols floating in the air, rising like smoke toward the stars. The radio in Daniel's house crackled at the same time, the signals sharper, faster. She was sending messages, Daniel realized, not hiding but calling. His chest tightened. Was she warning her allies or was she leading the hunters closer? He returned home without confronting her, his mind torn between trust and fear. The next morning, Soraya acted as if nothing had happened. She smiled faintly, served Lyra breakfast, and spoke gently. Daniel could not decide if she was protecting them or preparing them for something worse. Lyra noticed the tension. She looked between her father and mother, her small hands fidgeting. She whispered one word: family. Daniel's heart ached. For her it was simple. She wanted them together, safe. But for the adults, nothing was simple. Days passed, and strange events grew. Neighbors reported lights in the forest. Animals fled, leaving silence where there should have been sound. One man claimed he saw a tall figure walking in the night. Not Daniel, not human. Daniel brushed it off, but his fear grew deeper. One evening, Daniel finally confronted Soraya, his voice sharp. "What are you hiding from me? You say you want to protect her, but you walk into the forest and send signals. You bring danger closer every night." Soraya's eyes glowed, but her face showed sorrow. "I call for help, Daniel, not enemies. My people are gone, but there are survivors, scattered. If they hear me, they may come, and together, we can fight the hunters." Her words carried truth, but also desperation. Daniel wanted to believe her, but doubt gnawed at him. "And if the hunters find us first?" he asked, his voice low. Soraya's silence was the only answer. Meanwhile, Lyra's powers grew stronger. She no longer hid them. She moved objects when she was angry, healed small wounds with a touch, even lit a lamp without fire. Daniel warned her again and again, but Soraya encouraged her, saying, "She must learn. If she does not control it, she will be helpless when the hunters arrive." Daniel felt the family pulling apart, one parent teaching caution, the other teaching power. Lyra stood between them, torn but eager to please both. Her young heart could not see the storm gathering above. One afternoon, the radio screamed with a signal louder than ever, not bursts, but a steady pulse like a beacon. Soraya froze, her face pale. Daniel demanded, "What is it?" she whispered. "They are near, closer than ever. The hunters are on Earth." That night, Daniel could not sleep. He stared at the ceiling, listening to every sound outside, the creak of branches, the howl of wind. Each noise felt like a threat. Soraya sat silently in the corner, her silver eyes unblinking. Lyra slept between them, clutching both their hands, unaware of the storm outside. But Daniel's fear was not only of the hunters, it was also of Soraya, the secrets she carried, the messages she sent. Could he trust her, or was she leading them into a trap? The next morning, Daniel went into town. He needed supplies, food, tools, anything that could help if danger came. But as he walked through the streets, he felt the stares of neighbors. They whispered louder now, questions in their eyes, suspicion in their voices. One old friend pulled him aside. "Daniel, people say you hide something in that house. Strange lights, strange voices. If the wrong people hear, the government will come, and you'll lose everything." Daniel forced a smile, but his heart pounded. The danger was closing from both sides, human and alien. When he returned home, he saw Soraya at the window, watching him, her face unreadable. She spoke softly as he entered. "They are moving closer, Daniel. Soon we will have no choice but to fight." Daniel clenched his fists. "Fight with what? This is not our war. This is Earth. This is my home." Soraya stepped closer, her voice calm but firm. "It is her war too. She carries our blood, our power. If we do not stand, she will be taken, and Earth will burn with her." Lyra walked in then, holding both their hands, her voice soft but clear. "No secrets, please, family." Her words cut through the tension, reminding them of the simple truth she wanted. Daniel looked at Soraya, and for the first time, he saw not just an alien mother, but a woman carrying heavy loss, a woman hiding pain behind glowing eyes. Yet the secrets remained, heavy, unspoken. That night, as the family sat in silence, the radio buzzed again, louder than ever. But this time, it was not only sound, it was a voice, cold and sharp, speaking in a language Daniel could not understand, but Soraya understood. Her face turned pale, her hand tightening around Lyra's. The hunters were not just searching anymore, they were calling, announcing their arrival. The air in the house grew heavy. Even when the windows were open, it felt like the walls were closing in. The radio no longer whispered. It screamed, sharp bursts of alien language filling the rooms, and each night the signals grew closer. Soraya sat silently most evenings, her silver eyes staring at nothing, her hands folded tightly. Daniel watched her with suspicion, anger, and also fear. He had taken Lyra into his life with open arms, but now he felt like a stranger in his own home. Finally, he could no longer hold it. He slammed his hand against the table, his voice low but sharp. "No more secrets, Soraya. You brought this into my home, into my daughter's life. Tell me the truth." Lyra froze, standing between them, her small hands shaking. She whispered, "Family." But her voice trembled. Soraya looked at her daughter, then at Daniel, and her shoulders fell. She spoke, her voice heavy like stone. "Our world is gone, Daniel, burned and broken by the hunters. They were not always our enemies. Once we shared peace, trade, even knowledge, but greed destroyed it. They wanted power. They wanted us. We resisted, and they made sure we would never rise again." Daniel's chest tightened. Soraya's eyes glowed brighter as she continued. "I was a soldier once, but also a mother. When I knew the hunters would destroy everything, I hid Lyra. I placed her on Earth because I believed no one would look for her here. But I was wrong. They found the signal of her crash, and now they come." Lyra's face was pale, tears running down her cheeks. "Mother," she whispered, her voice breaking. Daniel pulled her close, holding her tightly, but Soraya's words still cut through the silence. "They are not coming only for her. They are coming for Earth. The hunters do not leave survivors. They will take your resources, your skies, your oceans, and when nothing is left, they will move on." Daniel felt the room spin. His world, his quiet life, his small town, everything was suddenly a battlefield he never asked for. His voice cracked with anger. "And you brought this here. You should have left her with her people, not with me, not with Earth." Soraya shook her head, her eyes full of sorrow. "There were no people left, Daniel. There was only me and her. I did what I had to do, because she is not just a child, she is hope. She carries within her what even I do not, a power greater than mine, greater than the hunters." Daniel's heart raced. He looked at Lyra, still crying softly. "She's just a child. She's my daughter. She doesn't need power. She needs peace." But Soraya stepped closer, her voice firm. "Peace will not come unless she fights, unless we fight. She is the key to stopping them. And if she does not learn, they will take her, they will use her, and Earth will fall." The words were too heavy. Daniel wanted to deny them, but the truth glowed in Soraya's eyes. Lyra was special, not because she was alien, but because she was more. The radio screamed again. This time the voice was clear. Daniel did not understand the words, but Soraya did. Her face turned pale. "They are here. Their ships have entered your orbit. Soon they will send their scouts." Daniel gripped the table, fear flooding him. His small home was never meant for war. He could fix machines, repair engines, plant gardens, but he could not fight an army from the stars. He turned to Soraya, his voice shaking. "Then what do we do? If what you say is true, if they are already here, how do we survive?" Soraya's voice softened. "We survive together. Your love has given Lyra strength I never could. Your care has taught her to be human. My blood gives her power. Your heart gives her courage. Only with both can she stand." Daniel looked at Lyra, her small hands gripping his, her silver eyes filled with fear, but also something else, a spark. He realized Soraya was right. Lyra was more than either of them alone. She was the bridge between two worlds. That night, Soraya told them everything. She spoke of her people's fall, of the war that destroyed stars, of the hunters who consumed entire planets. She showed Lyra how to control her power, guiding her hands with glowing light. Daniel watched, torn between pride and fear. For the first time, Lyra spoke with strength, her voice clear. "I don't want to fight, but if they come, I will not let them take you." She looked at both her parents, and Daniel felt tears burn his eyes. The house was quiet again, but it was not peace. It was the silence before a storm. Outside, the night sky glowed faintly red, as if the heavens themselves warned of what was coming. Daniel lay awake, staring at the ceiling. Soraya sat by the window, watching the stars. Lyra slept between them, her hands glowing faintly, even in her dreams. The truth was no longer hidden. The enemy was real, the danger was near, and the future of Earth now rested in the hands of a girl who was once just a mysterious child. The sky burned red that night, not with fire, but with light from above. Strange shapes moved among the clouds, silent and sharp. The hunters had arrived. Daniel stood outside his home, his fists clenched, his heart pounding like a hammer. He had never felt so small. The vastness of the universe pressed down on him, and yet his small house had become the last line of defense. Inside, Soraya stood tall, her silver eyes glowing brighter than ever, her body tense, her voice steady. "They will come soon. They will not knock. They will break. We must be ready." Lyra stood between them, her hands trembling, her young face filled with both fear and courage. She looked at Daniel, then at Soraya, her voice soft but firm. "We fight together, family. The words carried strength. Daniel felt tears threaten his eyes. She was just a girl, his girl. But the world demanded more of her. The first sign came with a sound, not thunder, not wind, but a low hum, machines cutting through the air. Daniel saw lights moving closer, small crafts breaking from the sky and descending toward the forest. The hunters had landed. Soraya raised her hands, glowing symbols forming around her. "Stay close to me," she said. But Daniel shook his head, grabbing an old rifle from the corner. It was nothing against aliens, but it was something. He would not stand aside, not when his daughter was in danger. Lyra touched his arm, her silver eyes bright. "Father, no matter what happens, you are my home." Daniel's chest tightened. He nodded. "And you are mine." The ground shook. Trees fell in the distance. Shadows moved through the forest. Tall figures with armor that shimmered like oil. The hunters, their faces hidden behind masks, their movements precise, cold, unstoppable. They reached the clearing near the house. Their leader stepped forward, his voice sharp and mechanical, speaking words Daniel could not understand. But Soraya answered, her voice full of fire. Daniel could not follow the language, but he felt the meaning. They demanded Lyra. Daniel stepped forward shouting, "She's not going anywhere!" The leader tilted his head, almost amused by the human's defiance. Then the fight began. Soraya's hands blazed with light, beams striking the ground. The hunters responded with weapons that hissed and burned the earth. Daniel fired his rifle, the bullet useless against their armor, but it drew their attention. He ducked behind the porch, heart racing. Lyra screamed, her fear bursting into power. The ground trembled, stones rose into the air. The hunters staggered as an invisible force pushed them back. Her eyes glowed like two moons, her small hands shaking but strong. Daniel looked at her, his fear turning to awe. She was more powerful than he ever imagined, but the power was wild, uncontrolled. Soraya called to her, guiding her. "Focus, Lyra. Control it. You are stronger than them." The battle raged. Soraya moved like lightning, striking, defending, but she was not invincible. A blast caught her side. She fell to one knee. Daniel ran to her, pulling her up. "You can't fall. Not now," he shouted. Her eyes met his, pain and determination burning together. Lyra stood alone now, her voice breaking. "Stop," she cried. The hunters froze for a moment, the force of her power pressing against them. The leader staggered, his mask cracking. Behind it, eyes black as night stared at her, cold and merciless. The choice came then. Daniel saw it in her eyes. She could destroy them, unleash everything, but it would consume her too. Or she could choose another path, a path her human heart whispered. She looked at Daniel, at Soraya, at the hunters who had taken everything from her mother. She closed her eyes and her voice rang clear. "I will not be your weapon. I will not be your prey. I choose family." The power around her shifted, no longer wild but calm. A wave of light spread from her body, washing over the hunters. Their weapons cracked, their armor shattered. They stumbled, some fled, others collapsed. The leader roared, but the light struck him too, breaking his mask, forcing him to retreat into the shadows. The forest grew quiet. The ships above flickered, then vanished into the clouds. The hunters were gone, not destroyed, but driven back, for now. Lyra fell to her knees, exhausted. Daniel rushed to her side. "Holy." Ding her close. Soraya knelt too, her hand on her daughter's shoulder. For the first time, the three of them held each other. A family bound not by blood alone, but by choice. Daniel whispered, his voice shaking. "It's over." Soraya shook her head softly. "No, not over. They will return. But tonight she stood. Tonight she chose." Lyra looked at them both, her silver eyes dim but steady. "As long as we are together, we can face them." The sky above was quiet now, but faint red glows still lingered among the stars, a warning that the war was not finished. Yet in that small house, in that fragile moment, peace lived. Daniel looked at Soraya, and for the first time he saw not just the mother of an alien child, but his partner in survival, in family. He nodded, and she nodded back. Lyra leaned against them, her voice a whisper, "Family." And in that word, Daniel felt hope. The night grew still again, but the future had changed. Earth was no longer hidden. The hunters knew, but so did hope, and in the heart of a small alien girl, adopted by a simple human and reclaimed by a broken mother, burned the light that could one day save the world.